Thanks everyone for joining. We're just waiting one more minute as we gather here today in rainy Ottawa. Welcome to those of you across the country. As a reminder, this will be translated. So please feel free to listen to the presentation in either official language, whichever your preference is. And with that, I think we will get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Christina Colangelo. I am the Program Manager for Cybersecurity Initiatives Program. I am joined today by Gary Miller, Vice President, Cybersecurity Programs and Services. Just a reminder, this webinar is being recorded, and as previously mentioned, French translation is available. Next slide, please. So just the plan for today, the road. So we're going to go through our welcome, talk a little bit about what is the investment analysis and blueprint project. Gary is going to help us put it in context of the broader collective cybersecurity experience across Canada. And then I'll take over and do why are we doing this project and talk a little bit about how you can contribute. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A pod and we will answer either as part of the conversation or we may wait towards the end if it's not really relevant to the conversation or the slide at hand. So if the question pops into your head, put it in the chat, in the Q&A pod, no worries with that. And with that, I do want to mention the land and waterways that Canary work upon are the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation. All people who live and work on this land are responsible for holding good relations with the local First Peoples who continue to fight for their rights as sovereign nations. We honor the stewardship of the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit that call this land home today. We strive to stand in solidarity and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples and nations across Turtle Island and invite all of you to do the same. Thank you. With that, I'll move to the next slide, please. So why are we here today? Hopefully you've either heard from the emails or from talking to your peers in the community. Canary is undergoing a project we are calling the Investment Analysis and Blueprint. And essentially what it is a collection of documents to support our community, the research and education sector in Canada, in understanding what are we spending as a sector on cybersecurity, what are we spending that on, and then what could we be spending in order to create a reasonably secure R&E sector in Canada. It's made up of a collection of documents, as I said. The two main ones are that investment analysis, which is being fed by data that we're asking you guys to provide. It's going to be aggregated, analyzed, and then that document will be produced. And then alongside that is a blueprint document, and I'll speak a little bit later on some of the details with that. Supporting those two major components are a white paper, a slide deck, presentation slides, executive summary, and measurement documents. Some of these documents will be made public, meaning available to anybody. Some of the documents will be available only to our community to use as they see fit. But regardless, everybody who participates in the questionnaire will have access to all the documents. Before diving into additional details, as mentioned earlier, I'm joined by Gary Miller, VP Cybersecurity Programs and Services here at Canary, and he'd like to provide further strategic context where this specific project fits within the broader Canary mission. Gary?
Great, thanks, Christina. If we go to the next slide, please. So I just want to sort of step back a bit and look at this initiative in the, as Christina said, in the broader context. And we appreciate that folks are often asked to spend a fair bit of time in a variety of initiatives and priorities. And my sense is it helps to understand the why and what is the motivation and what will this inform and how does it all sort of connect. And that really is the essence of collective cybersecurity. We all have our day-to-day priorities, we all have our day-to-day missions, but together we have the opportunity to do something very powerful And this is one key element of that in not only informing our own individual sort of financial analysis and blueprinting, but to learn from the collective community such that we can all become stronger together. So if you go to the next slide, please, I'll anchor a little bit about collective cybersecurity, very high level, admittedly, but just to give you a sense of how these components are all supporting what I call sort of strategic pillars of us all working together to elevate our collective cybersecurity. And then where does the IA and Blueprint initiative sit within it? So collective cybersecurity, I always think of it as, know what's coming, be ready when it gets there, which presupposes that you've got insights into the risks, the threats, and you've got the ability then to put in place the sort of the proactive measures to defend against those things that you've collectively prioritized. So the 4 pillars that I see within collective cybersecurity are the assessment and prioritization of risk, the informed planning, investment budgeting profiles, and you will see within Canary and the broader community a number of initiatives that support this particular pillar, such as the National Cybersecurity Assessment, such as the Blueprinting initiative, such as the investment analysis, such as many of the other surveys and risk compliance mechanisms that we all individually execute on. So that just helps inform where we need to put our finite resources, where we need to put the extra muscle. And that is really a key sort of launch point to effective collective cybersecurity. The second pillar is really about the sharing of actionable intelligence. So how do we gather, how do we correlate, and how do we disseminate intelligence such that the broad community can understand what types of threats we're all facing and understand what they might do in a proactive manner to better prepare to avoid the potential impact of that particular threat. The third pillar is similar to the threat intelligence, but here it's the federation of alert intelligence. So things that are actually occurring within various constituents across the community, how do we pull that together and propagate across such that everybody understands the type of initiatives and campaigns? This is the Federated Security Operations Center initiative, whereas the prior is the Cybersecurity Threat Intelligence Initiative, which tie together under the CANSOC initiative. And then underpinning it is the ability to share resources, materials, artifacts, templates, and we all at various parts of this connected community have many assets that we've developed, which many of our colleagues could benefit from. So when we talk collective cybersecurity, we're talking about prioritization of risk, sharing of threat, federation of alerts, and sharing and pooling assets where best we can. And the IA and Blueprint is a key component of that. And that's kind of how we put it in context or in perspective. And therefore, why it really is a priority initiative. It is going to inform so much that we can do individually and together. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. No pressure on me. So kind of going down the next steps from Gary's overview is the 2 documents. So I'll start first with the blueprint. And with the blueprint document, it is not a technical architecture. It does not prescribe solutions or vendors. It's really about, and the analogy I use that seems to resonate is, for example, if I want to build a home and I'm working with a structural engineer and architect, and I say, listen, I'm a family of 4, what do I need? And they'll go, okay, you need a kitchen, you need a bathroom, 3 bedrooms on average is what a family of 4 needs, and a living space, maybe a dining space. And it's really just that outline. They're not going to tell me where do I put the sink. They're not going to tell me what plumbing to use or what wires to run, or do I want pot lights or do I want a single light? They're just going to give me that structure. And it's a way for a non-expert in building, myself, who's going to purchase this house, can understand what we are striving to and what we need. So we really see this as a tool for those of you who are experts in cybersecurity to think, okay, here's what, as a sector, we think we need as a minimum outline. And this is a document that I can use to communicate to either other people in IT or other people at my institution who may not need to know, this vendor versus that vendor, or this solution versus that solution, but need to understand, I need an identity and access management solution. I need this in order to be considered reasonably secure. And then the other document is a companion document, which is really about, as a sector, what are we spending on cybersecurity in order to combat the threat actors that are coming after our sector? What are we spending? Where is that money coming from? And what should we actually potentially be spending, if that's what the data shows us, in order to be reasonably secure? And underpinning that document is a questionnaire. It's for both, but really for the investment analysis, is a questionnaire that some of you, as part of our representative sample size of approximately 75 institutions right across Canada, from CEGEPs, polytechnics, universities, research institutes, etc., were asked to participate in. But we want the data from anybody. So if you were not part of that 75, but you are able to provide us with some of that data so that we can aggregate and analyze, we would love that. So next slide, please. So how will we get there? So previously, I don't know if I mentioned this in this call, but we are working with KPMG. We went through a robust request for proposals process, informed by a working group that I'll talk a little bit about later, to help us develop these documents and really provide that third-party analysis that sometimes when you're in the sector and you're immersed in it, you're so close to the issue, you sometimes have a hard time stepping outside. So we're really looking at a consulting org, a partner org, to step outside and look holistically at the data. So next slide, please. We went through a RFP process. KPMG has been working with our working group. They've been developing the blueprint, as well as a threat actor analysis, which was pretty interesting to see. They're going to conduct the investment analysis. We're going to facilitate some collaboration with CIOs, CISOs, executive directors in IT. We've also been engaging with CABO and the VPs of finance to get their perspective. And then, as mentioned previously, along with the investment analysis and blueprint, there'll be other documents for broader dissemination, a white paper, visualization, and executive summary. So if we jump to the next slide, please. We, being Canary, could not do this in isolation. So we reached out to the community and invited some people to participate in this working group, and they were all very generous with their time and their expertise. And we've really used them so far to provide input onto the requirements for the request for proposal before we put it out publicly. We've been engaging with them at significant milestones. They reviewed the questionnaire, they reviewed the sample size. So we've been really transparent with this working group to get their information, get their strategic input, both to Canary and to KPMG. KPMG recently joined a working group meeting and got some some initial drafts up and is gathering feedback from the working group as well. And then they'll also provide some strategic guidance on the progress and distribution of the documents. And with that, if we jump to the next slide, this is the working group members. And shameless plug, side note, if doing work like this is of interest to you, please feel free to email me. I think we'll have other opportunities to reach out to the community and gather input. So please let me know. We'd love to get additional input. But we tried to really get representation on the working group across Canada, both official languages, and different types of institutions, from the CEGEPs to the universities, colleges, and polytechnics. So where are we in the project if we go to the next timeline? And I don't think I see any questions so far. But I do want to make sure I leave lots of time, and I also want to talk a little bit more about the questionnaire itself. So as I mentioned, we sent the RFP in April to potential respondents. We awarded the RFP to KPMG. We kicked off the project officially in June. In September, late September, we developed the questionnaire. We deployed that to the sample size, and we had the working group session with KPMG and obviously the working group. So we are, I should move that over since I made these slides. We are now in October, and later on in October, we're going to share with the working group more detailed drafts of the documents. And then November 2024 will be a final review of the data and the documents. And then late fall, reminder, December is still technically fall. We will do public posting of documents and sharing with the community. So just wanted to chat a little bit, and I don't think I have, oh, I do have slides. Next slide, please. So moving through the next steps, if we jump to the next slide. So as previously mentioned, select organizations received an invite to the questionnaire via email. It was sent to about 75 institutions right across Canada. We wanted those 75 institutions to represent about 50% of the student population in Canada. We also wanted to make sure that various types of institutions were represented, so colleges, universities, CEGEPs, etc. I just talked to KPMG about half an hour ago, and we've said the questionnaire takes about 30 minutes. On average, people are taking about 16 minutes. So even less impact and less time to you, hopefully. As I mentioned, if you were not selected but would like to participate, and we have had quite a few people, I think over 10, between 10 and 20, put their hands up and say, I want to contribute. I want to be part of the aggregate data. I think this is important to Canada and the sector, and I can easily provide you the questionnaire link and a unique code that you would put in. The questionnaire is available in English et en français aussi. So if we jump to the next slide, please. So I proactively tried to keep a few questions in here that I anticipated the community might have. One question is, and Gary alluded to this earlier, we understand that you guys in the sector have had a lot of requests for surveys. This is different with the NCA because the NCA is really about looking at what do I as an institution need to do and what is my roadmap. So I love that slide that Curtis and Julie and the team have developed that tells you, like, you know, this is what you should do now, this is what you should do next, this is what you should do later in order to increase your cybersecurity posture. What we're trying to do is take a more holistic sector view. So this is really not about saying how organization A compares to everybody else. This is saying, what are we spending? What are we spending on? What are our priorities in cybersecurity as a sector? How are we structured? And then everybody can use that to have conversations internally at your organization with provincial partners, with federal partners, with whomever you might need to have conversations with. We do recognize that there may be some overlap with the questions. And so really looking to the future, both with our working group and feedback from our Cybersecurity Advisory Committee and other groups we work with, there is a question of, can we help streamline this data gathering across NCA, across the CUCIO benchmarking, across this investment analysis? So that's something that we are looking to in the future. So another question was, why are we working with a third-party consultant? I did allude to that a little bit in that sometimes it's great to have fresh eyes come in, look at the conversation, contribute to it. We wanted them to be able to tap into their expertise and specialized knowledge. And we also wanted to customize the solution. And to be frank, to augment the resources we have in Canary in order to accelerate the work. We knew this was important work that needed to be done in a timely manner. So bringing in help and bringing in more resources helps us get to that fall 2024 deadline. And then the other thing I really wanted to emphasize is we take your data very seriously. We consider it strictly confidential. It's only going to be used in relation to this specific engagement with Canary. Canary will have access to the data that KPMG is collecting, but we wanted to reassure you that we will do the utmost care in this data that you are providing. And then also everything will be shared at the national aggregate level, as previously mentioned. This isn't really about pointing out any one institution or even one type of institution. This is really looking at the national aggregate level. If there is a quote or something from the survey that we'd like to include, we will absolutely reach out to that institution and get any prior permission before we would include anything like that in this document. Those were the frequently asked questions I had anticipated. I did want to mention, and I should have mentioned this at the previous slide, there were some questions about what are the type of questions we're asking about. So I brought up the questionnaire. I'm not going to share it just because it's an Excel document and nobody wants to look at that. But some of the questions are going to be things like which role is accountable for owning, and we've put that in quotation marks, cybersecurity. Is there a committee or task force that determines cybersecurity priority strategy and large-scale activities at your institution? What are taking a list of priorities that have been established by leaders in 2024, what order would your institution prioritize? Who do you think are the most detrimental threat actors to our sector? And then there's some more specific questions around what range does your overall institutional IT budget fall in Canadian dollars? What percentage do you dedicate to cybersecurity, including personnel, third parties, insurance, retainers, licenses, etc.? So I just wanted to give you that, and I think overall there's under 40 questions. I just wanted to give you that so that you have an idea of the specific type of questions we're asking. And with that, I realize I have left about 6 minutes. So if we jump to the next slide, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. If not, I will say thank you. This project overall has been super collaborative with our provincial partners in the NREN, with our working group, with our community members on our advisory committees. And it's really, I think Canary's just really grateful for all the work we're doing together as a sector. And yeah, I don't see the Q&A pod, so I don't know if Victoria, you can let me know if there's any questions.
Yeah, so Christina, there is one question just regarding maybe a missed email. So I have noted that and we'll follow up with them privately. And then I also have a raised hand as well. So I will, Luke Roy, I'll just promote you and allow you to talk in a second. So just note, you can ask the question over mic. So just getting started now.
Hi guys. My chat is disabled. That's why I raised my hand. So when are you going to be sending the questionnaire? Because I couldn't see it in my inbox.
Great question. So if you haven't received the email with the link to the survey, let me know and I will get that to you. We may have had an older contact for your institution, or we got caught in spam filters. So please feel free. My email's at the on the screen, but I'll also reach out to you separately, Luke. Merci.
Merci.
All right, Christina, we have one more question here from Thomas Wong Matthews. The KPMG survey on Microsoft Forms, can it be paused and returned to if there's a question that we'll need to collect data from someone else? So I guess just can we pause it, return to it, or is it, once you've opened this link and started the survey, do you have to finish it all?
Oh, geez, great question. I can't remember the experience. I think it saves it, but now I'm so panicked that you're going to start it, have to get to a question, and you're gonna be so mad at me if it stops. So let me confirm with KPMG, and I will get back to you, unless KPMG was able to join. I don't think they were today. I will get back to you and confirm.
All right, that was our last question for now. If there are any more questions though, please feel free to raise your hand or enter the questions in the Q&A box below.
For me.
Did you want to add it?
I want to extend my thanks as well, and you've identified the various folks that have been engaged and collaborating and supporting, and thanks to the committee, thanks to everybody who's going to take the time to rally their organization in getting really robust data, and thanks to our provincial NREN partners for their collaboration support, and also for helping rally participation. I think the more we get, the more meaningful this data will be to all, and it will be used in many different valuable ways. So yeah, thanks to all.
Great, thank you, Gary. All right, if there's no further questions, I can give everybody back 3 minutes, and thank you. Thank you everyone for attending today.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.